Estado hundida de mí, ya no puede dirigir, ya no le va a importar, ya no se puede animar. ¿Cómo se va a desquitar? Se va a desquitar a huevo. Sube el volumen, enciende el fuego. Grita la nube, se va en el viento. Llora en el río que ya está seco. La noche nadie lo espera, se lo come a uno entero. Por eso se desespera, no espera. He estado hundida contigo a tu lado. Ya no puedo dormir, yo pensando en ti, tú pensando en él. Y estorba que ya no le puedo los llantos. Este río se secó, ya no tiene calor, ya se me emborrachó. He estado hundida contigo a tu lado. Ya no puedo dormir, yo pensando en ti, tú pensando en él. Y estorba que ya no le puedo los llantos. Este río se secó, ya no tiene calor, ya se me emborrachó. Es una hora de amor, que no tú tienes calor. Si nos mojamos, que no sería mejor, que no sería mejor. Pinta hacia mí, yo sobre ti, sobre cada paso sigo junto a ti. Cada paso sigo junto al fin, cada pasito juntita de mí. Es el amor, lo enloquece, arde la llama quemando la mente. Fumando hierba, alegría en la frente. Goza mi cuerpo, goza lentamente. Pone condón, recio lento. Arde en la espalda, ya me pinta blanco. Jugo calentito, ya me bautizo. Ya no puedo más, sol, cuánto se acabó. He estado juntita contigo a tu lado. Ya no puedo dormir, yo pensando en ti, tú pensando en ella. Y estorba que ya no le puedo los llantos. Ese río se secó, ya no tiene calor, ya se me emborrachó. He estado juntita contigo a tu lado. Ya no puedo dormir, yo pensando en ti, tú pensando en él. Y estorba que ya no le puedo los llantos. Este río se secó, ya no tiene calor, ya se me emborrachó. Estos sentimientos ya no puedo explicar. Estos sentimientos que me van a destrozar. Tú bailas conmigo y yo sueño un altar. Tú bailas conmigo pero bailas sin pensar en otro. Ya no me opongo, felices los tres. Yo te propongo verte en el hotel, conocernos más bien. Ya tú sabes, tengo gusto a miel. He estado juntita contigo a tu lado. Ya no puedo dormir, yo pensando en ti, tú pensando en ella. Keep running, keep running, keep running, keep running. Keep running, keep running, keep running, keep running. Pulling to the liquor, about to hit, got the sweaty palms. Running mission through my head, gripping on my gun. It's not the life that I expect, but a bitch I can't correct. Then he hit the disrespect, I made me for the neck. Calculating every move, so I miss a step. Now my bitches go hard, coming from the west side. Nigga need a test, trust me, you gon' need a vest. Rush don't never get you nothing, start running, keep running. Keep running them laps. Keep running them laps. Stay on the track if you switch off your path. You will not last, you can go fast. The shit is the shit we go through. But don't get me, it's up to you. The table turn where you run. No, when I'm on my motherfucking trunk. Keep running them laps. Keep running them laps. Stay on the track if you switch off your path. You will not last, you can go fast. The shit is the shit we go through. But don't get me, it's up to you. The table turn where you run. No, when I'm on my motherfucking got a thousand pattern dreams. Type of shit you only see. Sit in front of a movie screen, I was a fish. Now I'm swimming with the sharks, taking over shit. Now I shoot a bitch on sight, cause I am that bitch. I keep a Glock on me, no stopping me, I hit the gas. Tonight is young, get on your toes to see how long you last. Keep on laughing cause you're looking back or fuck the past. Cause if a bitch is riding up, I'll be quick to blast. But ain't no bluffing, I've been trained for this since I was young. If you're not down, I take a bullet, then you don't belong. Now for the weaker, you should know only the strong survive. It's do or die, kind of on 187 homicide. It's the way that I speak to. You don't like that's your issue. Crying at your ass, here's a tissue. Your mama shaking ass while she diss you. Mad cause I'm rising to the top, yeah. Big what? Big loot. Bitches hella scary. They be on my joke so much that I be think they wanna marry. I don't never trust a bitch. Cause bitch, you want my Betty, yeah. But I'm mozzarella, only set it and forget it. Let it rise to the top like I'm cream of the crop. Rubbing at your speakers till I make the top drop. Giving me top while I make the drip drop. Thirsty as fuck, I'ma let them lick shots. Keep running them laps. Keep running them laps. Stay on the track if you switch off your path. You will not last, you can go fast. The shit is the shit we go through. But don't give me, it's up to you. The table turn where you run. No, when I'm on my motherfucking trunk. Keep running them laps. Keep running them laps. Stay on the track if you switch off your path. You will not last, you can go fast. The shit is the shit we go through. But don't give me, it's up to you. The table turn where you run. No, when I'm on my motherfucking game time hit list, leaving the witness. Finish what you start, little bitch, or you finish. I'm getting this, breaking laps around you like I'm Usain. Everybody around me know that me go insane. Pre-game, better catch your train before I miss ya. Handing bricks and then I'm calling the competition. Envision, running out the trenches, get to running. Cause I'm all focused in your head, then it get to gunning. Drumming on my side, I got my pistol in the ride, bitch. Give a fuck what you spray, got my sidekick. Run it up, bitch, y'all gon' shut it up. You don't want that smoke when it's coming with that, yeah right? Fucking La Pacino, blowing kilo in the casino, Bumpacino from the city of trees, the Mendocino, Rigo shit. Don't confuse, I'm a queen, a lot to lose. Got a warrant to gain, this in the game, passing you in your grave. Better back up, better strap up, better watch your step, you live, this thing, red. I feed these bitches lead instead of beef fillet. Okay, my call away, be at your spot by a mile away. The bitch late, think about how I spot your brains, okay? Real bitch always down, not just the limits. Fuck me to be the miss, fatter, dick to be the biggest. Got on these like it's 4 figures, no forgiveness, at least you win this. Real ass bitch, running shit, better stack, start to finish, yeah. Keep running them laps. Keep running them laps. Stay on the track if you switch off your path. You will not last, you can go fast. The shit is the shit we go through. But don't give me, it's up to you. The table turn where you run. No, when I'm on my motherfucking trunk. Keep running them laps, I'm on the track with up. Drumming them thing in the back, they gon' rap-a-bump. Got foot on the gas, I'm going fast. He look at me like he gon' laugh. Yeah, that's the way that I speak true. Don't look at me, this is all, it's all you. Table turn where you run. No, when I'm on my motherfucking drums. Hey, this is Bella St. Rose. You better act like you know, motherfucker. Hey, Bay Area. Yeah, 916, 510 to the 415, 707. You already know. West Coast, bitch.
She gon' make it clap. I'ma show her style. She gon' throw it back. I'ma blow a rag. Lemon pepper wings. We bout to smoke a pad. Drinking the Coke and Jack on my open tab. I like to see my independent women winning. Get it, flip it, spend it. Stay about your business and your benefits. She way up there, getting dizzy spinning. She ready to make that ass drop any minute. Niggas be Superman, Captain Kirk, and the waitress is serving. The strippers is twerking, but Birkins for gaming is working. Literally, niggas be bitter for weeks. Cause all you got from her is some glitter on your cheek. She made a phony plan for a lonely man. So he dropped 40 bands on her OnlyFans. He had dreams of holding hands on the sand. Should've listened to your homies. Damn, she on that Polish game.
Drop it down low, yeah, mop out her chips. Get your stacks a night, little baby about to quit. Big body, Birkin, red bottoms, big tipper. Yeah, she can spot him, she can drop it down low. Yeah, mop out her chips, get her stacks a night, little baby about to quit. Big body, Birkin, red bottoms, big tipper. Yeah, she can spot him, yeah, thunderstorm. When I'm in the building, bring a few bottles. Yeah, I'm chillin', hit the stage and watch her clap it. Draw them goons, little mama a magnet. Top shelf, she don't do them lanes. She'll break them pockets. It's not a game. Want a mouth off? She dustin' and disgusting. Better play them cards right. I wouldn't trust her. She can drop it down low. Yeah, mop out her chips. Get her stacks a night. Little baby about to quit. Big body, Birkin, red bottoms, big tipper. Yeah, she can spot him, she can drop it down low. Yeah, mop out her chips, get her stacks a night. Little
you this.
I'm a woman of very few words. And that's in a lot.
Living in the underground, always looking up. Currently the world just ain't enough. Been holding on to love and to trust, but life's far from just numb and rough. Been grinding just to move on up, when reality hands out heavy fucking slugs. Testing the internal fortitude of my intestines. Blessings don't lessen the pain of the lessons. I'll only switch up to flip up my middle finger. Fuck it, the game and I are no strangers. Won't let this go for death and no danger. It's my time, I'll fucking spit for 5 fingers. Cause who needs the light of a lighter when you can light a fire with a cipher? And I am the direction of the future, so let me take you there like I'm the Uber.
I'm a woman of very few words. And that's in a lot.
Everything worth living for is real. Make the choice, deal or no deal. You go get it before it's the final meal. Once it's gone for real. God gave me the strength to heal. Take this pain to turn the wheel. Make life one that truly feels like it's forever real.
Nobody ever believed he was real.
Yeah.
Nobody ever knew him or saw anybody that ever worked directly for him. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
Hey, what up, everybody? It's your boy DJ Rowe. This is Anna's Global History Radio. Anna, you in the building?
Sure am.
Let's do it.
Okay. Hey, what's up? How's it going?
It's good, good. You?
Yeah, pretty good. And yeah. I was coming from Louise Lawrence Transgender Archive, digitizing newsletters, which kind of means scans, but it's not just scanning, it's digitizing. I used to be more anti, because sometimes there can be this attitude of automatically scanning everything, and I'm like, no, that's too fucking boring. But unless it's worthwhile, unless it's something that people want to see, there's stuff that is only important to researchers, but things like newsletters are really fun for people to see. And I mean, from what I was working on today is from the 90s and early 2000s. So it's pretty important. I mean, it was, a lot of people have died for various reasons. So it's important. Hang on 1 minute. Let me see if that's my door.
Uh-oh, y'all. Remember when Mr. Rogers used to have guests on his show? It's like a guest on the show.
Huh? So it's pretty important, and it's fun for people to go back and see that stuff. Then I had the problem of trying to identify them. When you just have so much paperwork, you want to try and distinguish something. And at first, I kind of forgot to do that. And because I was so excited to have this scanner where you could just put stuff in and go zip, zip, zip. So then the director came in and said I needed to put some more description. So a lot of this stuff is just the same. A lot of it's pretty routine. When you look at an organization, a lot of it is just requests for renewals and all of that. So I was trying to think of different things for different ways to do that. And then with something like this,
yeah, people going under drag names mostly, but then with some people, they'll have down both names. So somebody could be looking for that. And in relation to that, it's kind of been an archiving type weekend. It's Gay Pride Month. Happy Gay Pride, everybody. So I had I've been having a pridey type week. In the beginning of the month, the city of Vallejo raised the pride flag. I don't think I talked about that at the last show. So people come down for that. And I normally don't care that much about being quoted, but there's a couple people in the community that just, if you're not careful, just a few people can represent your community. So I contacted the reporter that was going to be covering it and told him I wanted him to put some women in it. So he did, me. And some other women. One other woman that I'd brought down because I'd sent a friend of mine. I'd sent her a photo of the commemoration at City Council, which was basically all white guys. So she saw it and was just like, okay. I was like, okay, dude, I'm letting you know what you're getting in for. I'll come pick you up and take you home. So I did, and she was quoted too. What I said was that it's more important to do things like that, like this, for other people that are suppressed, that there are people in danger. There are people in a lot of countries who cannot express themselves, who cannot be themselves, who are facing death for it. So it means a lot to me. And the elected officials come out for it, and or they send representatives. And I always say to them that it means something for me. I never take what I have for granted. So that was raising the flag and the city council commemoration. And then this past week was packed. There was a drag show that I didn't go to, fortunately, because some of the people that were there came down with COVID, and fortunately they're doing okay. There was a history event at the museum with a couple elders talking about their LGBT experience. And I'd gone into the archives at the museum and taken photos, gone through, again, a lot of what you're just going through is newsletters and announcements. So what you're doing as an archivist for your presentations is mostly just digging through lots and lots of stuff to find interesting things for other people, which is what I did. And so I sent it to the person that was running the show. So he sort of announced like, oh, and Anna's put these together for people, and afterward we can go through them. And I was like, no, you can't do an like, this is archives. No, you can't just go pawing through them. Archivists are real possessive about stuff like that. And he said, well, we need to be careful. I was like, no. And not only that, if people are going to do that really defeats the point of something that I'm going to do, which is finding interesting things. If you get the interesting things out of a pile of material and show them, you don't want somebody going through the rest of the stuff. Like, why bother? And then
That-
that night there was a party at the museum, which was pretty fun. There was a DJ.
Nice.
There was not as good as you. It was just, but it was music that it was just lots of like 80s dance music and stuff like that other people were going crazy about. And that's not my favorite so much, but there's one person that can get me to dance. And so just because he's, I don't know why. So I was out dancing for some of it, and other people were just going crazy. So that was pretty fun. And then the next day was a picnic out on Mare Island. And there's tons of people that come out for that. There's lots of people that don't come to other events. And a lot of events that are billed as gay are mostly gay men. And I get people ask me about that. And it pisses me off because I don't represent anybody. I'm just myself, and I don't like being singled out in that way. And my answer is like, I don't care about who's not here. But there's a crowd of gay women who come to this event and sit in a circle talking to each other. So I guess that's where they are. I mean, it was a big event. It's you want to go around and circulate. And I saw somebody, there was somebody there. I was introduced to somebody, and my friend that was introducing us said, oh, Anna does this thing called the Bayard Rustin Symposium. The guy said, I know, I presented there. And I realized he was my keynote at the very first Bayard Rustin Symposium in 2018. So I was very excited to see him. It was very cool. The other thing I've been doing, and no, we did. Okay, we didn't do a show that week, last week. That's why I'm.
No.
Okay, that's because there was art. Wait, wasn't it Art Walk? Was Art Walk last?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Art Walk was last week.
Okay, because I was trying to remember who I was talking. Okay, because I was going over the whole blaxploitation thing with Age. So that's this weekend. Penitentiary.
Oh yeah.
I know. I'm not on Instagram anymore. So I just am trying to cut down on social media, and I can't do without Facebook, but I can do without Instagram. So it's in the Vallejo Arts and Events and all of that. So hopefully we'll get people to start coming out to that. So the story that was really engrossing me for the past week was 4 children were lost in the jungle in Colombia for over a month. And they'd been traveling in a small plane that crashed, and all the adults died. And when I first saw a small plane crashed, I thought it was some captain of industry or drug lord or somebody. You think that you sort of associate it with just wealthy people, but they were indigenous so I was listening to descriptions of what there was: a 13-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 5-year-old, and an infant, a 1-year-old. So apparently indigenous children are trained to survive in the jungle. They survived eating fruits and seeds. Just wild. And they had there's a lot of different stories floating around. They had there were helicopters and planes flying over, playing recordings of their grandmother's voice saying, telling them to stay put, but they kept moving. So maybe they didn't hear it, or maybe it was just instinct to keep moving, but the searchers would find traces of them. That would just be so frustrating you'd see, like, wait, they were there. Why did they keep moving? But I was listening to somebody talk about what the jungle is like there. And you're not taking a walk in the woods or everything. Like there are wild animals, there's insects and creatures, like you have to be, and it's hard to walk. You have to be really careful what you, like when you're walking, that you don't step on something dangerous. So they're taught how to survive. And I don't know, I mean, it's amazing to me that the baby made it. Maybe that I don't know what they were feeding the baby, but they were able to find streams and fruit and seeds and nuts. So it's just captivating, I think, because it's such an archetypal story of kids being lost and having to fend for yourself. So that's why it's so captivating. But this was real. But there's these different versions going around. There's one version saying that their mother was alive for 4 days, and other ones saying that she died immediately. So there's a version saying that she told them that she was alive for 4 days and then told them to move, to escape or move, it's kind of, I was trying to think about, there's a lot of crashes where I was trying to think because after a traumatic injury like that, usually you die pretty quickly. But if you survive, so I was trying to think, well, maybe she could have had wounds that became infected or something. So, but where these, it would have made more sense to me if the mother had died immediately, because if she'd been alive, she probably would have told them to stay put until they were found, because that's kind of what you're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's really sad. And where they are is so isolated. There isn't indoor plumbing, electricity or anything. So I was trying to figure out where you land the plane, because they're saying that I was reading that that's the only way you can get around there is in a plane. Well, but what did people do before there were planes? I guess they just didn't go anywhere. So they must have cleared a path, but that's gotta be, the plane was 17 years old. So, but that's gotta be a pretty damn good pilot to be able to land a plane in such a small spot. I mean, if it was right in the jungle, how big could it be? But the family was saying that the jungle is their home and they know how to survive there. So, of course, there's starting to be a custody battle. The kids have different fathers. And so the father of two of them was allowed to see those kids, but he wasn't allowed to see the other one. And so it's just so sad. The grandparents want custody, and the state, the social services is involved already. I mean, it's just, you really hope that, I mean, I want the grandparents to just take them and go back to the jungle as soon as the kids are out of the hospital, because they're just going to be besieged with people wanting to make a movie about it.
Yep.
Yep.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
Exactly. And they're just going to be surrounded by people trying to take advantage of them. And I mean, they speak an indigenous language. I'm not even not all of them. A lot of people, they're like in those tribes, I mean, they don't speak Spanish. They speak, so hopefully they have somebody looking out for them. That's all I can say. And I mean, but it would be a fucking great movie, but basically it's not, what's compelling is it's just a classic plot. So people are going to want to be buying that story. But if you just make a story about kids being lost in the jungle, I mean, that's not really. And also it's claimed that the whole reason they were flying out in the first place was because of gangs. That's the other thing that they have to be that there's a lot of gangs of drugs, of rebels and drug sellers. So they're in danger from nature and they're in danger from people.
Gotcha. Wow.
Yeah. That is one fucking tough 13-year-old girl. Wow. So the other story I was just reading about people getting taken advantage of. There was a front page story in the New York Times saying, how do you get a home? Something or other, 22-year-old bought a home with with lottery winnings. So you know how stories are. So I went to it, and the New York Times, I don't know. I mean, it has some good aspects, but it can also be so fucking sleazy and tacky. They love clickbait. They have certain things they love to piss people off. And so they really like stories about young people complaining, because then they get so that they can get lots and lots of people writing in saying, damn those millennials. And then parents of millennials can defend them. And if any millennials happen to be reading the article themselves, they can defend themselves or try to. So this girl was in college and her family has a lottery ticket tradition for Christmas, and she got a $50,000 lottery ticket. Yeah. And 13,000 were taken out for taxes. So it was about how she used the money to buy the house, but even with that amount of money, it's relatively, I mean, it's a lot of money for something to just kind of get, but compared to lottery winnings, it's not that much.
Right.
And she couldn't buy, she still had to move from where she was in order to get a house she could afford. Basically, she wound up buying, it sounded like what would be considered a starter home, and if things were in a normal type housing market, not super fancy or anything. That's not what it sounded like. And she happened to be a young person with good credit, because I guess even if you win the lottery, people aren't necessarily going to, a lottery winning doesn't get you a mortgage. So it was really, you're so used, pretty much any story you read about people winning the lottery is going to be about trouble and misery. And she went back to school. I mean, she continued going to college. I mean, basically, she got it. It was enough money to buy her house, but not enough to stop working and buy a speedboat and stuff like that. So really, it was about the best lottery story I had ever read. So, but I was trying to figure out what the undercurrent was, what there was for people to get pissed off about. So I clicked over to the comments. The comments were all positive.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to, what are you going to say bad about that? I mean,
I know. The only bad thing people found to say is that this girl claims she's making money off on TikTok. But yeah, it is pretty fucking weird. They like, the New York Times loves to do things about, they love articles like, okay, well, this 2-income couple wants to buy in Brooklyn for under $1 million. Will they be able to do that, or something like that? So they can piss off a lot of people that way.
crazy.
I know, huh? So do you remember the Guinness Book of World Records?
Yes, do they still have that? Can you
Yes,
still get
they
that?
do.
You know what? I'm gonna have to give me one. I
I
haven't read one of those in a while.
I know there's an art. Well, I was reading an article about it. And I mean, it was a big deal when I was a kid. Me and my brother would look through it. It was just really fascinating. But now, with who even knows? That's what I mean. I was surprised that it's still there, because there's TikTok challenges and all of that. And I read about it. It was tipped off because a lady in Nigeria cooked for 4 days. She cooked for 4 days straight because she wanted to set a record for cooking.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So she did. But in order to get the record, you can't just have somebody else. There has to be somebody from the Guinness Book of World Records to chronicle it. So somebody lived underground for weeks and came out and couldn't get in the record book because it wasn't chronicled.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
messed up.
Yeah. I really think that's the sort of thing that you should figure out. But what I remember is things about the tallest person, the shortest person, the fattest person.
Yep.
The tiniest baby.
Yep.
Yeah, I even remember what the book looked like. It was this thick paperback, like paperbacks used to be back there.
Yep.
Mhm.
It's almost like a dictionary almost.
It was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to see if I can get it, but I can get an original copy of it from the library. That just reminded me. I'm not. You can find, because it's just different. It was just now. It's just interesting that it's kind of like everything anything can be a Guinness, can be a world record. People.
Yep, very true.
Yeah. People can try and set up any fucking thing. Cooking for 4 days straight, but she had somebody monitor that. You'd have to, because you'd really have to cook for a long time. I would just kind of pick, like, I kept wondering if somebody with a whole lot of kids was going to challenge that. Hey, I cook all the time. I cook for days and days and days.
Well, 4 days straight.
I know, but you know how people are. They always want to try and challenge and bring stuff
True.
up. Yeah. I just thought that was kind of funny. I thought about posting that with a joke that was kind of the joke about it. Some people will start tracking. Oh, how many hours do I spend cooking? But that's crazy. I mean, like because then I have to go find out what's the world record for staying awake.
That's funny that you said that on YouTube the other day. I watched something about this dude from Vietnam who doesn't sleep.
Ever?
No, something happened to him and he was in the army or something, and he has some kind of PTSD where he doesn't sleep. So I wanted to, I don't know the dude's name because it was I couldn't pronounce his name, but you could probably look him up.
Oh yeah, dude from Vietnam that doesn't sleep.
Yep.
That's weird.
So he might be on there. I don't know.
Yeah, if he wanted to. I don't see how that's possible.
I don't see how it's possible either, but I don't know.
Maybe he sleeps with his eyes open.
Maybe
People
so.
do that. You can sleep with your eyes. There are people that, so yeah, you'd have to get, you'd really have to have witnesses, because I mean, some people, you can fall asleep in your chair. People can fall asleep in their chair and not look asleep, especially since they can sleep with their eyes open. But poor guy, that is some real serious trauma. And that is something that could be treated if he wanted to. I don't care what they say. There's got to be some medication that can put him down, that can give him some sleep.
Very true.
He
didn't seem too sad about it though. So
yeah. Because if he did find some kind of anesthesia, and there's a lot of people that don't. I didn't used to sleep. I used to barely sleep when I needed to. So that's the Guinness Book of World Records. What were some of the other stuff? That's where the Siamese twins were in it.
I remember those.
Okay. I credit them, and as they are known now, conjoined twins. Yeah, I credit the Guinness Book of World Records for my being fascinated by Siamese twins. Because that is like, there's twins that are joined. There's twins that are practically one body with two heads. Like, it's one thing when you're joined on part of your body, like I can joined on like your chest or something, but there's people that are joined that like have two legs, two arms, and all that's separate is their brain, is their heads. That just kind of challenges what gets you to consider what makes you an individual. I mean, that's horrible. Of course, they're individuals. If you have two separate brains, and personalities, you are two separate people. But okay. So here's another thing that could be a world record. Some people were like clearing out Grandpa's house and found 1 million pennies.
Wow.
Yeah. Just so they were trying to figure out what to do with them. I mean, you'd need a whatever, you need some sort of mechanical thing to lift them. They're really heavy. They couldn't, and this seemed really odd to me, because obviously that you think, well, just take them to Coinstar, but they didn't want to pay.
Oh, so
Yeah, that's crazy. If you have that, I mean, like when I go to Coinstar, I just want to get rid of the fucking pennies. I don't care if it's like costs $1 or $2. And besides, it's a service. It's doing something. Why do you not want to pay for its service? And they couldn't take them to the bank because the bank didn't have room. But yeah. But then somebody told them that some of the pennies could be valuable, that some of them could be way more valuable. It was estimated that the value was about $20,000 of the pennies.
Oh.
Yeah. But then somebody told them that some like pennies have been made of different things over the world, over life, over time. And so somebody told them that, well, you can go, I mean, sure, talk about finding a lucky penny. Like you can go through this million pennies and try and find one, like a copper penny is worth 300 grand or something. Now I'm remembering a John Oliver segment about the penny, because there's movements. It does, like, they should just, in a way, I mean, if it costs money, it costs more to make them. The whole process costs more than making them. Making pennies costs more than, I mean, obviously anything's going to cost more than a penny. So I was on this on Facebook. There's a society to save the penny. John Oliver used to do really cool stuff like that. See, that's why I used to love him. He would just do strange things, like about the Miss America pageant, and about cereal, and about the last Blockbuster. But then he just started, and when Trump was elected, he claimed he wasn't going to talk about Trump, but he did. He just went to talking about the same shit as everyone else, Trump.
I think once Trump came along, I think no one could contain themselves.
Well,
everybody in one way or another had to talk about Trump.
Well, people making that much money should be able to think of something different. But anyway,
I you know what, I could, but I can also understand at that time when Trump came around, it's just, we saw everybody was affected. It just, no one could contain it.
No, I know, but well, hey, Global History Radio has barely talked about Trump, because
we barely, but we did a little bit, but we barely, you're right. We didn't spend a lot of time like other people. You are exactly right.
Yeah. And because Oliver said at the beginning, he's not, but I mean, he's done comedy is political. So, I mean, he's not a journalist. He makes that clear. He's a comedian, but comedy can still be investigative. So he did some really funny thing. No, it wasn't about the owners of a mine that collapsed and people died. And yeah, he used to be really funny, but Trump wasn't funny. Actually, I didn't find him funny at all. And
I never thought he was funny either.
No, and when they like when they tried to do him on, it wasn't entertaining to watch him to watch the depictions on Saturday Night Live, because what's funny about imitation, about depictions of somebody, about characterizations of somebody, is you see what they're thinking. It's like public figures. So if you're going to like, I loved Kate McKinnon. I stopped watching Saturday Night Live after Kate McKinnon left. I loved her depiction of Hillary Clinton. And she was so, like, she depict Hillary Clinton and Angela Merkel, these people that you knew were never going to tell you what they're really thinking. So that's what makes it funny. And Trump just, there's no secret, or Trump just says everything. So there's nothing funny about him. And however, we will spend a minute or two. He was arraigned in Florida court today, federal court, and for taking classified documents. How long have they been trying to do this? So I guess it's in Florida because that's where he lives. I'm not sure. And the judge assigned to the case was somebody that he appointed. So I mean, today, apparently he was up he's just saying his usual stuff about it, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much different. I mean, hopefully, God, it would be nice if he went to jail. I mean, if he went to jail and if we never had to hear him again.
I doubt it.
I know. But I mean, there's been some pretty smart people trying to get him for years. You kind of think eventually there's been so much effort to try to nail him, and so many different people tried from so many different aspects. So I would not be surprised either way, basically.
We'll see.
Yep. Okay, so related to that, Governor Gavin Newsom did a long extended interview with Sean Hannity, the Fox News journalist. And I think Gav just did great. It's just like, as he said, it's so important to talk to people. He just was perfect. He was relaxed. He didn't get offended. He didn't get upset. He stayed not pleasant, but he was just coming back at everything Hannity said with very smart comments, and very not long and drawn out, just things that our people could understand if they were paying attention. And damn, he must, I mean, they rehearsed for, I mean, I'm sure, like, they rehearsed for debate. I'm sure he must have rehearsed, and because and in a way, I mean, if you're going to be prepared, since and Hannity was talking about how liberals don't watch him and stuff, and Gavin was, I watch you. So, I mean, he was smart. You got to watch these people to know what they're doing. And
Right.
So he kept, but it's also just amazing how people can spin stuff. Hannity, people keep asking Gavin, he kept the big about all these people leaving California. And Gavin just managed to come up anything like that Hannity would throw at him, he could find something positive about California. I guess apparently Silicon Valley is doing well. And it was, I'll probably watch it again just because I like to watch. I like to watch people speaking well and responding well because I'm always trying to get better. It's shit. Okay, it is fucking. Maybe I'll do it. Oh, okay. Because like Hannity at one point was like, well, we could talk about this over a beer. It was, and what Hannity kept asking him was whether he's getting calls to run for president in 2024. And so he was saying, well, I'm telling you, is your phone lighting up with, and Gab would, well, my phone is lighting up with how well Biden did with the debt ceiling crisis and all of that. He was just coming back. He wasn't shooting down any of the, because that was just really smart. When somebody comes at you with something crazy, you can argue with them, or you can deflect or come back with something. You can not don't respond. You cannot respond. It's just how to not argue. Arguing means you've lost. Like how to answer somebody and remain on topic, but not get drawn into it. And Kamala's good at that too. And everything all of his answers were, he wasn't just saying, no, they're not. He was coming back with answers. Everything he said was more information, more positive things about Biden. So I'm sitting there thinking 2028, man, 2028. If Gavin runs in 2028, he will have done it the old-fashioned way of, well, shit. Well, Biden did it in a way. I mean, Biden did. People that have been in government for a long time. I mean, to me, that's what's weird. This whole, this is one of the weird things about politics. This whole concept of having somebody come in that hasn't done the job. There's people that like that, and there's no other field like that. You don't want your doctor like that. You don't want your mechanic like that.
Right.
So,
yep.
Yeah, I mean, Obama had experience. He had experience in the state. He'd been in the state legislature in Illinois for many years, but other than that, he was running for president as soon as he was elected to the Senate. And trying to think, well, I guess I would say the people running for president, like George W. Bush he'd been governor of Texas. And so I guess Trump was probably the only, I mean, obviously he's the only person that ran that hadn't held office at all, but governors are more likely to win elections than senators. People have a hard, because with senators, their opponent can go after them with votes, because when you vote, most votes are not on just one thing. They tack a lot of other stuff onto it. So they could have voted for something major, but their opponent can go after them for an appropriation for something or other that they don't like, and the appropriation is going to be a small part of the bill which gets put in, so somebody will vote for it. That's just how legislation works. And if you've been in office, if you've been in the Senate for a long time, there's lots of votes. there's always going to be things that you can disagree with somebody about. It's just too complicated a thing. Unless you're like Burn Dog and haven't ever done,
Burned up.
you know, and unless you're like Burn Dog and haven't ever done shit, yeah, that's why I didn't like Burn Dog. Like, sure, it's real easy for people to think you're like all squeaky clean and all that if you haven't done anything. So yeah. But governors can, I think, can create their own story more. They can craft their own version of events. They can interpret actions. Yeah, they can interpret it. They have more leeway to tell their own story. And yeah, there's going to be the same stuff happens. Like, okay, if a budget is passed for a state, there's going to be different parts of it. And yeah, people can pick on different parts of it. But okay, Clinton was a governor, Carter was a governor, Bush was a governor. And going back a little further, there hasn't been, well, not so much before then, but certainly in my lifetime, it's just been very, very prominent. And Clinton was the governor of a small state. So he could really craft his story. So anyway, I don't know and I was talking about it with my dad, and he's saying 2028. That's a long way. I mean, also since he's 91, but yeah, I'm real nervous about 2024. I mean, they can just do all these selective. Poor old Biden fell last week. Again,
Biden fell down again.
Did. Yeah. Yeah. It just sucks. I mean, if you're followed around by, and of course they can selectively edit things. If you have cameras on you all the time, you're gonna get caught doing something stupid or something like that. And I don't know. I mean, he might be getting, I mean, okay. Remember when he fell down on his bike?
I remember that.
Well, but that was bullshit though. People should have okay, how many men his age are riding bicycle? That dude's in shape.
That's what I mean, to me, it was kind of stupid. Even if he did fall.
I know. Yeah.
He fell riding a bike. Like,
exactly.
You know,
exactly.
That's no different from a kid falling off a skateboard.
Well, yeah. And they should have, the fact that the important thing was that, yeah, he was riding a bike and he's in shape. So yeah, but then he's fallen getting off stairs a couple of times. He probably, I mean, of course he's got to be, he could have something or rather going on, like where you can start to like lose some coordination, or there's something where your feet can get kind of numb, or you don't have sensation or something, or I don't know, but yeah. So we got Trump, and then we got the Disney guy, the anti-Disney guy. Man, people are going to have so much fun going up against him. I mean, what kind of asshole goes after Disney? Rip. So, okay, you want to take a break?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
change at the string. And a rip thing. And you can feel the pain when I bust. It's furious, so yeah, it's serious. You found to catch on fire when you mention the 7-star general. When you see me salute, June top, West Coast, my top, standing on the roof. Usalama on standby, living like a bulletproof. Make me wanna bust. Don't make me grab my gadget, get kinky real quickly. Grab that bitch and squeeze the titty. Man, I swear it never gets pretty this ugly. I'm quick to grab your head and kick it off like brother. Go ahead and find your spot. Think about it. Elaborate. Before it's too late, hit your expiration date. Behind the black gate, it's the Mickey ears and Cinnabons. It's activated and you hate it cause I'm on one. I'm about to knock your head up to the white meat. The most electrifying, yeah, and they don't like me. I make you kiss my Nikes. I make you kiss my knife. I'm doing 100 in that 55, but turned it to a cat 5. Little Mikey didn't like it, that's a damn lie. I make you kiss my knife. I make you kiss my knife. If it's extravaganza, you can pass it. Catastrophic is the topic. Revolutionize, frame of mind, rise and grind. What about 1 million gorillas front line? Fuck that fork and spoon shit. I'm hungry than a motherfucker. I'm sucker ducking, chicken plucking. The big homie trying to beat that conviction and he's still street politicking. About my chicken, I'ma throw it up in that deep fry. Keep my game solidified. That bullshit is minimized. Go ahead and blow some wind under my wings. Let them fly, young nigga. Let me fly off to better things. But I'm deep up in that jungle, baby. I can knock that shit up out the park, baby. I'm about to knock your head up to the white meat. The most electrifying, yeah, and they don't like me. I make you kiss my Nikes. I make you kiss my knife. I'm doing 100 in that 55, but turned it to a cat 5. Little Mikey didn't like it, that's a damn lie. I make you kiss my Nikes. I make you kiss my knife.
I'm American, I was born here. My father was born here. His father was born here. His father was brought here. But fishing's too close to the river in Africa. Like this black ass right up on the show. Come on, niggas, goddamn it, North Carolina. Where things happen for you. And a king, if you know. Right, hand it out. Africa, I remember we were watching. People start screaming. And it's something back to Africa.
To the pains of my solitude. Don't mean to have that mood to be rude. My cameo coming up in the next episode. But no promise if I'm a recurring role. Come as I go, can't be mad at the nomadic. Ain't carrying up at no status, falling as a body phallic. I'm in good taste when my palate is balanced. Kicking it with my kings and queens, sipping from a chalice. No mononucleosis when you kiss the rings. Staring like my piss in a drug testing. And I smoke and I curse like I travel the 7 seas. While you asexual, probably carrying STD. Putting the two that syllables and oxymoron. Can't argue with crazy, know where how it goes on. To fly, always going above heads. Plotting an invasion, surveying the homestead. Take you on a natural high, so hang 5. If you feeling the vibe, and hang 10. If you feel it within, do what it do, ain't afraid of chagrin. Take you on the natural high, so hang 5. If you feeling the vibe, and hang 10. If you feel it within, do what it do, ain't afraid of chagrin. Cold and calculated, excellent with execution. Sharp like breath the hitman heart when I'm shooting. Sounding the hardest without flexing a muscle. Blow them kisses like you blowing them bubbles. Pause as I'm kept posing for the cameras. Let me shed some light with the right aperture. And I'm seeking out like them scavengers. Feeling no limit with my stamina. These waste men is too complacent. Hear no evil, see no evil, and don't say shit. Run them jewels, pulling the heights of the century. Giving back to community, still in front of enemy. Robin Hood, more like my bro Rufio. Cutting them promos when I'm in the studio. Jake the snake with the tongue slick. Arm like a python with the anaconda vice grip. Take you on the natural high, so hang 5. If you feeling the vibe, and hang 10. If you feel it within, do what it do, ain't afraid of chagrin. Take you on the natural high, so hang 5. If you feeling the vibe, and hang 10. If you feel it within, do what it do, ain't afraid of chagrin. Too ambitious. Contain your excitement. Stop with the self-righteous. You're too biased, straight pious. Practice what you preach in private. How I wanna snap your neck when I move in silence. Not about violence, but ain't the one to be trifled with. When I'm lit like a fuse, I can be explosive. But for the most part, I'm taking everything to heart. Fed shit like a mushroom left in the dark. Stressed out and left out. No FOMO, but I feel I dodged a bullet, so that's just my way to let go. Blue or red pill, I'm choosing a purple drink. It helps me to sleep or when I get sick. And for more well-being, I'm seeing through facades. Shout out to all the homies who be putting me on their own platforms, cause we on the same plateau. Different minds that think alike with similar type of goals. Take you on a natural high, so hang 5. If you feeling the vibe, and hang 10. If you feel it within, do what it do, ain't afraid of chagrin. Take you on the natural high, so hang 5. If you feeling the vibe, and hang 10. If you feel it within, do what it do, ain't afraid of chagrin.
And we are back, y'all, and it's Global History Podcast Radio. Anna, you in the building?
Yeah. Who've we been listening to?
Do it.
Yep. Who've we been listening to?
That was AKA. The song was called Nature Boy.
Okay. 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 Beyonce is blamed for inflation surprise in Sweden. Beyonce is all powerful. The start of the singer's world tour in Sweden last month sparked such a frenzy of demand for hotels and restaurant meals that it has shown up in the country's economic statistics. Sweden reported higher than expected inflation of 9.7% in May. Rising prices for hotels and restaurants were behind the surprise. I guess there's surge pricing for Beyonce.
Hey, that's Beyonce.
Beyonce is all powerful.
Yep.
So I was reading about a museum in Belgium, and Belgium has just it's a rough history. It's a weird history as their country colonized the Democratic Republic of Congo, colonized, looted, pillaged, assaulted, everything, and and so I was reading, so they have all these artifacts, and we've talked a lot about artifacts being brought back, but how do you try and present that information to people? Because places they're not going to send everything back. They have there's tons of stuff. And that's the thing. I support return of artifacts, but not everything. People should be able to learn about each other, and really, everything that people want should go back to them, but they're not going to want everything. So in 2001, a survey showed 95% of Belgians thought colonization was good. And in 2022, the survey was done again, and the number dropped to 35%.
Wow.
I know, huh? So things can change. The reason I was reading, the books I was waiting for didn't come in. Well, they were so when that happens, I go wander through the true crime section at the library. So I found one about about a baron that had been kidnapped in 1978, Baron and Payne. I'm not pronouncing it right. And he was of Belgian descent, but lived in France. And he was a major captain of industry. He just one of these people that it's not like they own a business. It's like they own a conglomerate of businesses. That's the word I'm thinking of. And he was real good looking guy and kind of a celebrity, or people paid attention to him in the way stuff was in 1978. I mean, he'd be on Instagram now. So he was kidnapped, and the kidnappers asked for, so the book is split up. The first part is about him and his family, and then the second part is all about the kidnappers. There was a gang, it was 8 of them, and it goes into the biographies of a lot of them, and it was a really complicated crime. They had to rent vans and all this and places, and find places to hide him. And so they kidnapped him, and they had, like the oldest, they had somebody on a moped in front of him, in front of the chauffeured car, driving crazy, and then fell over. So the car had to stop, and then they rushed him. So they asked for something insane, like 80 million francs. And even when people are that wealthy, they don't have the cash just sitting there like that. It's all in different, I don't know, funds, stocks, stuff like that. And so there's no way anybody could come up with that kind of money. And there were, apparently before he was kidnapped, he had told his family if he was ever kidnapped not to pay the ransom, but then he changed his mind, fortunately. And so they wound up keeping him for a while. They chopped off the tip of his finger to send to his family.
Wow.
Yeah. But there was another kidnapping where the J. Paul Getty kidnapping where they sliced off the guy's ear. Horrible. And so it wasn't as bad as that. So the family managed to, they got the demand down to 30,000. I mean, now I guess it was francs, but I mean, they didn't have the euro back then, the euro dollar. And the family blew it, something or other. And after that, the kidnappers just went silent. And his family was just, so he was eventually released. And it's hard to believe. Apparently, they released him, and he went and got on the subway and went home. I mean, they kept him in a tent in a cave, and then he was in holed up in an apartment somewhere, like chained to something. So he got on the subway and went home. And his mother sounds basically like a sociopath. She didn't even welcome him home. And yeah. And when of course, when something like that, when he was kidnapped, his gambling debts were made public, and his mistresses, he'd been having a bunch of affairs. So his wife was mad about that. So the author just had a weird take on that. He was saying something about how, she was traumatized too. Or like, what? I don't care if your husband's been playing around, okay? He's been suffering and tortured. So so there's kind of different versions of what happened. I mean, the Baron wound up writing about it. He said his kids weren't glad to see him, and then his kids have said yes they were. So his life fell apart after that. His wife left him, and he was estranged from his children, and so some of the kidnappers were caught, and he went to court, and he wound up corresponding with one of them. So at the end of the book, they meet and converse, and the Baron like forgave him, basically. So that part was wild. And kind of the point was they were similar. They even had they were just similar people. So it was kind of about how you can go in such different directions, to put it mildly. But I kept reading it because most of the time, mostly if you're reading most true crime novels, you know what happened, because that's why you picked it up in the first place. But with this one, I didn't. I had never heard of it before. So I was reading it. It was actually getting sort of suspenseful because I didn't know what was going to happen. The other book, one of the other books I was reading was about a woman who was crucial to the development of forensics. And forensics is the combination of medicine and law. Before there were medical examiners, there were coroners. Coroners don't need to have training in anything. So it was very likely to just be a patronage post. I mean, it would be a pretty cush job that somebody could give you, and the coroners would basically, they didn't apply any science or knowledge to what they did. And then there's pathologists who study death and disease, but they can tell you how a bullet went in and what happened, but the medical examiner, they can tell you how close the bullet was to someone, but not where the other person, they can tell you what the injury was, but not necessarily how close it was, what the angle was, whether the person has gunpowder, if it has gunpowder on their face, and cops didn't, the whole concept of leaving a crime scene in situ, as it says, for the medical examiner to look at, didn't used to happen at all. They just would they'd try and just clean up everything. So there was a pathologist who was interested in developing this field. And a woman named Frances Glessner was born about in the 1880s, and she was very, very rich and interested in medicine. So there were some women going to medical school at that time, but very, very few. She's somebody that, it's just one of the things that's interesting to me about women in history is you look at somebody like her and they just who influenced the field rather than practicing in it herself. She amassed a huge collection of books about pathology and was just fascinated by it. And the like, you need a medical examiner to just to put things together, to put the pieces to get together, and the science and the law. So the medical examiner that she was friends with, he was just one of these people that never took a vacation and was just absolutely driven. And so Francis, I have to look again. It started with the G, funded it basically. And she gave money to Harvard basically for this guy to endow a chair. It wasn't an endowed chair. I don't think they really called it that back then, but basically to create a department of forensic medicine where he could also educate people about it, because it just didn't exist. And it was coinciding with another book I read called The Poisoner's Bible Handbook, which was similar. It was about poisons in the 1920s. I mean, when there was prohibition, people aren't going to go without their booze. So people would be making alcohol illegally, and just the numbers of how many people died from that are just crazy. And you look at when it was, and I was talking about it last week. Even the numbers we do have got to be an underestimation, because at that time, I think there would have been people in rural areas. I mean, they probably did. People in rural areas probably did do a better job of making booze than people in the cities, moonshine or whatever. But I just don't see how they could get the records. How are you going to try and get information like that from all over the country? And the problem and centralize it. You don't know, if you don't have somebody medical with that training in charge of deaths in a city, nobody's going to put it together. If you don't have somebody that knows how many people are dying in similar ways, you won't be able to try and find out where the poison is coming from, where it originated, or no, to find out whether this is just a freak occurrence or is this something people are doing. And whether it's just something people are doing. So forensics just didn't, it was just really interesting because it didn't exist. And so they were, and we've talked about it before, because it's good and bad what this lady was doing, what Francis, shit, this is driving me crazy. I'm gonna have to pick up the book during the next one. What she was doing was good, and she was very modest about it. She didn't have things named after herself. She would funnel money so that the money would go to the sort of through the college. So the doctor that was her friend didn't know that the money was coming from her. And she was very well informed. She collected medical manuscripts and drawings and all this stuff. And so she created a library of forensic pathology at Harvard, but then she didn't want it to go to the main library there. She wanted to just have her own little library there, and basically said she cut she'd offered them $250,000, and this is in the 1920s, man. I mean, that's a nice donation these days, but shit. No, it was, maybe that was getting toward the 30s. So yeah, so they kind of went along with it, but I haven't finished the book. But what she did that's considered unusual, or one of the things is creating dioramas, is creating little models of rooms, of houses, because that's how people need to be able to see something. That's what they needed to do, be able to do in order to figure out crimes. Like, okay, if the person's lying here, then it means this. So the book is called 18 Dioramas. So I haven't even gotten to that part yet. It's kind of written really strange with these long descriptions. I actually got sort of annoyed when I was reading it because the author said she could be difficult. I actually put the book down. I'm like, I don't want to read this shit, because that's just bullshit. That's what people say that about women that assert themselves, that they're difficult, that they're stubborn. And so that's the stupidest thing. I mean, you're so stubborn. Well, agree with me. Like, okay, that's one reason why arguing doesn't get you anywhere, because you basically can have two people saying you're stubborn. So I was annoyed and by that, and I was like, okay, fuck that, read the book. I mean, he doesn't know what he's doing, because of course people would have thought that. And she hadn't even gone to college, and I'm not saying that in a derogatory way. That not many women did at that time, but basically she was able. Well, she was an autodidact, self-taught. So she did know quite a lot about the field, but she managed to get a position of authority because she was so wealthy. But she really was doing things for the public good. Like what this department was doing was trying to share this knowledge, was trying to educate people, because the field didn't exist, to try and educate medical students. There's this whole description, like, what does it mean? Things like, okay, if blood is congealed in this part of the body, it means this. There's just so many things you need to know. So yeah, Frances G something. So I'll probably finish reading that tonight.
How long does it take you to read those books?
That one won't take me very long. I read pretty fast. I read pretty fast when my concentration's good. It's not always good. I mean, sometimes, like if it's something I'm really into, I can read a whole lot. I guess I can look at some, you know how it is. I mean, you just, to anybody, how you do stuff is normal. Like I'll be like if I go to a museum and there's a plaque or whatever, I can look at it. I can read the whole thing at once, I guess. Like I'll just look at it and read it. And I remember being in the museum with somebody else who was reading it. People do that to me all the time. I mean, like reading it, standing there reading it line by line. She's like, you can look at it and know what it says. I'm like, yeah. So, yeah, but man, so few people read now. It's just really, really frustrating. Or I'm not saying it. It's not just because I love to read. I mean, the internet's fucked up. I don't read nearly as much as I used to, and my concentration is fucked for different ways. But yeah, one reason I've been trying to get better at is turning off the computer well before I go to bed and then just reading. Because you sleep much better if you haven't been looking at a screen right before you go to bed.
Very true. Very true.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I read South Korea's Truth and Reconciliation Commission said Thursday it will investigate 237 more cases of South Korean adoptions in 11 nations. So we talked about that some last week, and then I went to there was a film I was kind of curious about called Blue Bayou, because it's really beautifully shot. It's one of those things where the lead, I don't even know how they do this. The lead actor is also the director. So I guess, adoption out of Korea really got going in the 1950s after the Korean War. But what I found out was a lot of people were adopted from South Korea in the 70s and 80s. And that was because of girls, that's the thing. In a lot of societies, boys are more valued, so people will put their girls up for adoption. But again, the problem is people will bring their children to places, to what would be called orphanages, but they don't want to give them away forever. They just can't feed them. And so the numbers for this, again, are staggering. At adoption agents, and it's something where there's going to be so many like so many people paid off. Adoption agencies didn't need to go through immigration or anything. They did not have to go through any governmental legal process to have kids taken out of the country, which is just crazy. And so I guess, 11 different nations. So the Truth and Reconciliation Commission it's its own entity. And so gathering this information will mean that adoptees who are legally challenging the agencies will have this evidence, because right now the burden of proof is on them. They're gonna have to, if they say their adoption was illegal, they have to prove that it was illegal. And that's got to be really hard, because records, I was watching a documentary about it, records weren't kept, and just in a lot of places were just going to be like, you'd have an adoption agency that was going to be that were going to be headquartered in the United States or Europe. So they would be working with family or orphanages in the country that were going to be short-staffed, where there would be a language barrier, and where just records would not be kept professionally. So if somebody's stuck with proving that something was illegal, it's sort of, you can't say the absence of paperwork should demonstrate that it was not legal, or that it was not legally or appropriately done. That should demonstrate it, but it doesn't. They have to find more evidence. They have to be able to show something. They can't use emptiness. So that will be very interesting. That Korean adoptions, I didn't realize that because they call it the diaspora, and I guess South Korea was the country where the most people were adopted from, and they're just all over the world. So I'm pleased that this is happening, that there's hopefully going to be some accountability. I listened to this podcast called Adoptees Crossing Lines, and it says what they call themselves is they're ungrateful adoptees. They're not grateful, and that they asked a therapist, I just am reading some other books about it too, that everybody, even adoptees that don't go searching for their family of origin, they still want to know what happened. And one of the people that was interviewed was a good example because, well, one of them, I mean, there's all sorts of stories, but there was somebody that was just very, very clear that she had a good childhood, that she had a good relationship with her adoptive parents, and she still needed to find out who her family was. And you find these, and people talk about what it's like to see somebody that looks like them. If you grow up with people that don't look like you, you really feel it. And I think not just, and it's deeper than not just, there's the obvious aspects of transracial adoption, but it's not just that. It's wanting to see somebody that looked like you. So people want to know where they come from. And I would really like to see these agencies nailed. And they basically just took advantage of poor people. Want to take another break?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Word. The type of lady I need in my life. My girl and my wife. Mama, you crazy fly. You crazy fly with your cute ass. H. Scott. That's a boy more like your boy. Rather be with the hate than a time to be there for the time you go for the boy. And you got my back, little girl. Never be take a little It's elementary, you were heaven sent to me. We started off slow, but you became mine eventually. It was our destiny, call us soulmates. Simply hooked up
Life's been so great. You make your own cake, huh? And so do I. But that ain't the reason why we together. We just fly like Kim and Kanye, Hova and Beyonce. Real power couple. Fuck what our bank accounts say. Mamacita, I love how you make your veggie fajitas. Yeah, the real Chiba, she's the bomb. Quick to light the bomb, then watch Cheech and Chong. Let me know when I do wrong, but I stay right though. Don't wanna make her mad, she might go psycho. But that's alright, yo. You crazy fly, so turn it up. And your trees roll it up and burn a Dutch. And show some love to your favorite on your playlist. You're crazy fly, that's why I made you ages. Main rule, hope you feel the same too. Cause it's you I'll remain true to, yo. You crazy fly, feeling the same like you. That's why I really love you. I got the love. I got the love. I love the way you call that you make me show. Yo. Let's go somewhere where I don't care.
BT.
Man, I love my bitch, but she's crazy. Her way of thinking never ceases to amaze me. She's in her head fighting her demons on the daily. Man, I love my bitch, but she's crazy. I'm about to put on my headphones and ignore this bitch. Call on the Lord, pray for this bitch. Lord, please, I ain't got time for this bitch. She lucky I even wrote a rhyme for this bitch. She seemed bitter, but she's so sweet. She's my chocolate throw baby and she chose me. I wish she wouldn't give misery her company. The only time I see her smiling when she fucking me. Stay with me now. Baby girl, stay focused. You fucking with a real one in case you haven't noticed. Ain't nothing about me bogus. And when it come to handling my business, I'm a grown ass man and you know this. I was born the oldest. I'm the head, not the tail. I never fail to plan because I never plan to fail. You plan to be with me, please show and not tell. First love yourself and try to seek some mental health because you crazier than hell. And I love my bitch, but she's crazy. Her way of thinking never ceases to amaze me. She's in her head fighting her demons on the daily. Man, I love my bitch, but she's crazy. I know that look on your face. What you thinking about? It's 10 o'clock in the morning. Why you drinking now? You're holding on the past. It's okay to let it go. Stop stressing on the things that you can't control. Let go and let God if you want to grow. I'm just trying to be supportive if you want to know. My bad for losing patience, calling you out your name. It's hard to figure out what's going on inside your brain. We can go see a doctor or talk to a counselor. We can work the 12 steps. I will be your sponsor. You want to shout it out. I'd rather talk it out. This relationship is getting toxic. I'm going to walk it out. Poor mental health and drug addiction is a cold mix. I love my girl, but I hate her psychosis. Not gonna enable her, don't think that I can stay with her. I'd rather keep it real with myself than even play with her. She crazier than man. I love my bitch, but she's crazy. Her way of thinking never ceases to amaze me. She's in her head fighting her demons on the daily. Man, I love my bitch, but she's crazy. Damn,
BT.
We are back. Anna's Global Podcast Radio. Anna, you in the building?
Yes. So that was Age and Thug Nasty.
Yes, you caught that one, huh?
Sure did. Man, I love my bitch, but she's crazy.
boy Doug Nasty, y'all.
Oh, I know, man. That's Thug Nasty for you, the one and only. Okay, so this lady was named Frances Glessner Lee. Damn, books get drawn out. I haven't, it's called 18 Tiny Deaths. And the point is, I know that it's about the dioramas, and it's almost, I mean, the main guy, the doctor, has already died. So, okay, so I was looking back. One of the other thing about adoption is a Texas, okay, a bill was passed in Texas that birth parents must be informed of their rights, which doesn't happen now. And yeah, hopefully there's a really excellent book making the rounds now that hopefully will get a lot more attention, just tracing how children were removed from their families and sent out of state, and they weren't even abused. Their mothers were on drugs and mentally ill, and they weren't even abusing them. And they had extended family that would have cared for them. It is fucking criminal. It's trafficking. It is kidnapping. That's what it is. And it's just a total mindfuck, because people get told, oh, it's so wonderful that people will talk about, oh, I want to adopt because adopting is just so beautiful and wonderful. Yeah, but what about where this kid comes from? What about their bio? Like, okay, what is it like for them? What is it like for their parents? It isn't about you. And that's just the narcissistic element, which I think, unfortunately, a lot of people do feel that way. And just this idea that well, I can't have kids. It's sad that, like, okay, well, you can't have kids, then adopt. Like, I mean, it shouldn't be that way. Adoption shouldn't be another, okay, well, it shouldn't be for one thing, it shouldn't be a second choice. That's just not fair to kids. That if you don't, okay, well, I didn't get what I wanted, so I'm going to do this. Like, no kid should feel that way. And hey, maybe you just don't get to have kids. Okay, you don't get there's a lot of things you don't always get what you want. Nobody does. And
very true, very true.
Yep. So okay, so this is kind of interesting. I was reading about a real conservative senator, I think, maybe I can't remember if he's a senator or representative from Wisconsin, because there's people that are pissed. There's people that don't like Gay Pride Month. And so, okay, in San Francisco, they all go insane with it. And apparently they raised the pride flag in front of the police department in San Francisco. And I guess people were dancing. I'm not sure if it was so anyway, it went on TikTok and went circulating all over the world. And I feel like I don't want to give our enemies ammunition. Okay, there's people against us. There's people, and like I was really annoyed because at the event we had at the museum, the Pride event, there was this 11-year-old kid singing, and it annoyed me because what does she have to do with it? And I didn't think it was appropriate. I think if kids okay, this wasn't a recital, this wasn't church, this wasn't a family event. And I don't want to be a spectator to kids. I feel very strongly about boundaries. And I think, sadly, it's kind of a stage mom situation. So I kind of I took off. I mean, then they, after this little girl sang, then they brought out a teenager, and I'm like, a fucking another one. I was annoyed. I was like, why the I mean, partially because like, okay, well, ask me to, because this is like a group of people. I had written to them saying like, I need, you put me on next time there's a history event, because, and so, yeah, so that was part of it. Ask somebody else to speak. Or if we'd had, there's young adult groups, or teens. I mean, if some of them had wanted to sing, I would have thought that was great. But 11, you're really not making your own choice. And so her mom said that and I also felt, again, there's people that are trying to ban drag queen story hours. There's people thinking that gays shouldn't be around kids. And so I don't think there's no reason to have a kid singing for a bunch of adults, and we shouldn't fight we should not, you need to fight battles that are important. And okay, and she was singing a fucking show tune, like a Broadway show tune from some musical that's about a lesbian couple. So why is an 11-year-old singing that? Yeah. So in other words, I don't want like I said, I don't want our enemies to have ammunition. And a friend of mine actually started drag queen story hour. And it's interesting because it's just really popular, and a lot of parents, you see lots of parents who aren't gay, bring their kids to drag queen story hours. People just like it. People think it's cool. And partially because, it's like, okay, well, you have clowns and Disney characters. I mean, there's all sorts of like weird characters that read stuff to kids. I mean, drag queens are about as unsexual, as unsexy as possible. Okay. They're not sexy. That's not even the point. So, well, it's just not. I mean, it's kind of when you see like little girls around drag queens, you're like, oh, good, sparkles. So yeah, I mean, because drag queen story, like, yeah, that's worth fighting over because it's something that families really enjoy. But we don't fight smart. Like, okay, don't get hysterical about this. Fortunately, somebody's taking it to court. Like, take it to court, because how the fuck can you regulate that? Like, okay, no drag queens reading to kids. Okay, so does that mean does that mean a woman can't read to kids in high heels and makeup? So anyway, so there was a dairy. So Wisconsin was declaring June to be Dairy Pride Month. Dairy Pride. And so what they're trying to do, and I understand this, is make it so only cow's milk can be called milk. Because I mean, there's almond milk, there's oat milk, there's cashew milk, there's just all this stuff. And basically you can call anything milk if you want to. So there's now legislation or something or other to establish standards for what can be called milk and what can't be called milk. So I'm sympathetic to that, because that's about farmers and income. So I don't know. I mean, it's not like somebody is, I mean, it's not like somebody is going to be it's a mark. It's just, well, it's marketing. People think they're having milk, or I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's going to make it's not like somebody is going to change. Okay, well, this, I don't know. So what should they, oat juice or oat? I mean,
I don't know. I think this is getting to be a little too much.
When it comes, I sympathize with farmers basically. And well, shit, I mean, it's gonna be, this is gonna, okay, whatever. This is gonna be industrial dairy farms that are behind this. So,
All right.
everybody's got to make a book, but I
What
don't
are gonna do? Sue people if they call something milk that they don't think should be milk? They get sued or something?
know, not people, companies and products.
Well, companies.
Yeah. I mean, you can, trademark, copyright, all that. Hey, it's rough out there. I just hate the idea. And it's, I don't know. Trying to make a living. They're saying something like it's a completely different process. I mean, almond milk is such a weird concept, and I've certainly had it, but because almonds, how do you extract liquid from almonds?
Well, you know what? What is the definition of milk?
I don't know. Let's see.
See that maybe that'll help us out here.
Okay, yeah. Definition of milk. Milk, an opaque white fluid rich in fat and protein secreted by female mammals for the nourishment of their young. Okay, so milk, liquid secreted by the mammary glands of female mammals to nourish their young. Okay, so that is not almonds.
Mm-hmm.
What is the definition of milk in food science? So yep. Okay. Well, hey, if it was my business, I would go ahead and argue about that, I mean, it's so crazy because people think, I mean, some of these milks also, I mean, there's this idea that they're healthier and they can be full of sugar or anything. I mean, oat milk, it can be. So yeah, I mean, you put milk on it and people think it's healthy, and it's not. And I mean, people will, a lot more people feed their kids that, or I don't know. So more kids are dairy intolerant. They're dairy intolerant if you don't give them dairy. Some of them are just,
Right.
but anyway, so happy Dairy Pride Month. I think I want to get a t-shirt saying dairy.
Oh, geez, dude.
I think cows are really cute. I think they're adorable. So maybe I could get a dairy pride shirt with a cow picture.
I want to see how that's gonna go. They're gonna change it to oat juice.
Yeah, I know.
Oat water.
I know. Yeah. Oat nectar.
That's a good one. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Nectar usually comes from fruits, right?
Well, yeah, but milk usually comes from cows, and or
I
people.
wonder how they're gonna do that.
I know.
Oat liquid, I guess they call it oat liquid.
Yeah.
Almond liquid.
I better get copyright or patent, not copyright, patent.
Almond liquid.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, we've got a show Friday night.
Yes, we do.
Come on down, everybody. Blaxploitation night.
Yep.
Yeah. Hopefully more. It'll just get going more by word of mouth, or I don't know. I haven't been able to publicize much. So, yeah.
See, we'll get it going. You know how we do.
Yes, that is how we do.
Yep.
Okay. Got anything else going on to announce?
I think that's it for me.
Okay. Well, I'll see you around 6 o'clock on, yeah, it says 7 now on the, it's so, yeah, so we can get, I'll get there at 6.
Done deal. Sounds like a plan.
Okay, well, cool then. I'll
All
see
right,
you.
y'all.
Night, everybody.
Out. Good night, everybody.